So Donald Trump is set to visit here in South Korea in about 10 days. At least that's the plan so far. You never know, Trump could change. And the question is he going to meet with China's President Xi? And is he also going to meet with North Korea's Kim Jong-un? I don't know. Ask Trump. It changes on a day-to-day basis. But at the moment, it looks like he is at least coming here to South Korea. It's going to be in Gyeongju. Essentially, it's a more rural part of Korea, so not Seoul, not here in Busan. And they got this whole new facility set up. This is APEC. I think Korea hasn't hosted this for about 20 years, something like that. And it stands for Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. There's going to be a lot of countries coming, and all eyes are, on Trump. Are you going to have yet more tariffs and people are going to get angry at someone? Who knows? And as I showed you guys before, South Korea may or may not be giving Trump a gold necklace. There's going to be some drama around that. And they've been actually showing Trump and his whole ballroom thing. And I'd like to show you guys this stuff because, the Korean news is basically the same events as what you have in USA, just slightly different. They show you a little bit more, a little bit different stuff. So, for example, the question is like, why are you tearing down this building? Why are you spending all this money? You're claiming, it's not going to cost taxpayers money, et cetera. But there's a lot of questions on the corruption. They were talking about that. In the Korean news, if they want to use the bribery, that kind of stuff, right? It's just kind of obvious when you look at this stuff. The other thing, too, I thought was interesting is they were talking about how Trump supposedly designed it himself to be, like France, and it's kind of like your golf course. And it's just like, are you turning the White House into a personal residence? That's sort of the questions that people are talking. And then when you look at the comments from just regular Koreans, this is what they say, which I like to share with you. One person writes, this is just regular Korean, a person who's about to leave after 3 years. Building a house means you intend to live there forever. That's how someone reads it here. Here's another person. What's he doing is exactly the same as Yoon, right? That's the former president. What's the difference between going from the Blue House to Yongsan? So basically, if you don't know, the former president here in Korea pulled a similar stunt, basically tried to screw around with the residents, moved it to a different location. And my wife always says, one, we know he's like involved with culty stuff, but like my wife always says, he was probably talking to like a fortune teller or something like that. For reals, that was the former president Yoon. And so whether or not Trump is consulting fortune tellers or whatever to, say, hey, you have to, build the gold ballroom for this kind of thing, who knows, ask for Trump. But I wouldn't be surprised, as a lot of his administration has sort of, has that culty aspect to it. Also, you have Koreans saying he really wants to become king. Another person says you and Yoon are twins, which is not a compliment. I always recommend this movie, but I just want to recommend it again. I do it every now and then because it's a good movie. You should really check it out. It's called 1987. It's about part of history of Korea. And basically, the general theme of the movie is what inspires just a regular person or people to rise up and fight for democracy when your government is basically lying to you. That's basically what it is. And the first scene of the movie is a fantastic scene to where the government comes out with this like ridiculous explanation for why a protester died. And I really recommend you see in the movie because it directly mirrors exactly what you're seeing in USA. And it's funny because they were showing Karen Leavitt here in our news in Korea, right? And basically, Karen Leavitt's completely unprofessional. That's basically what it boils down to. She had like these really bizarre texts. They talk about I think this guy's Stephen Chung, where they're like completely unprofessional, where she was getting texts from a reporter and like Karen Leavitt's response was your mom. They're actually translating all the text. So I'll show you in English so you can see what these texts are. This is over from one of the Trumpers. It says, congratulations to Huffington Post for listing the most legendary response from the White House. HuffPost asked who picked the location for Trump's upcoming meeting with Putin. And the press secretary responded, your mom did. Stephen Chung also responded, your mom. Like, what? And even Karen Leavitt's like tweeting out this thing, right? Calling, a reporter a left-wing hack, blah, blah, blah. And this was the actual text. Karen Leavitt shared the actual text. And let me just read it for you, and you can make the decision for yourself. So the reporter asked on Thursday, is the president aware of the significance of Budapest? In 1994, Russia promised in Budapest not to invade Ukraine if it gave up the nuclear weapons inherited when the Soviet Union dissolved. Does he not see why Ukraine might object to that site? Who suggested Budapest? Thanks. That was the question. It's a question like, why Budapest? And Karen Leavitt responded, your mom did. And the reporter's like, is this funny to you? And the Karen Leavitt response was, it's funny to me that you actually consider yourself a journal. You are a far left hack who nobody takes seriously, including your colleagues in the media. They just don't tell you that to your face. Stop texting me, you disingenuous, biased, and BS questions. And again, they actually translated that whole thing for us in the Korean news. And even when you read this stuff in English, you're just like, what? And then they had to explain in Korean, because we don't really, here in Korea, people don't really use the expression like your mom. It's just not something, that we'd say. So you have to explain all that context. And then they even translated like follow-ups from the White House. And basically it just looks and makes the Trump people look like Trump people, because that's who they are. And I'd like to go through some of the responses from the Koreans after seeing, Trump tear on the White House. Then you see the press secretary respond, your mom. You see Trump do what Trump does. And they often like, this is how they respond. That's exactly Trump's level, referring to basically the Karen Leavitt thing. Another one. The saying that like-minded people gather seems to be true. Another person. What's even more surprising is that the White House says there's nothing wrong with that statement. And another person. A spokesperson for the party is acting like a fool in public. Crazy. And the translation here is not exactly correct. This is Hananada, but mostly just means like, the ruling party or whatever. But this idea like acting like a fool in public, right, is crazy. And then they have laughing symbols. Basically, regular people are just like laughing at Trump and his people, because how could you not? And and I always say the same thing. It's like it's hard to respond to stuff, because like, do you laugh, do you cry? The Trump people are so pathetic. And I like to show you, like in Korea, even when they translate this stuff, like people can understand it. For example, someone says here, flies are attracted to crap, right? You can see the word there. So why would bees be attracted to crap? Another person, it's astonishing how America's legitimacy and national prestige can crumble in just a few months. Instead of being a great nation, America is becoming a laughingstock to the world. Another person writes, this is a mess. Another one writes, the far right in the U.S. is at that level. The far right seems to be at a miserable level everywhere. And it's hard to explain to where like we have sort of a MAGA type people here. Also, because the former president Yoon, I've always mentioned him, is just like Trump, basically. Tried to throw in martial law, etc. The difference though is here in Korea, people took to the streets peacefully. The military didn't follow what the former president tried to do with the martial law stuff, and it was just different. And then they were impeached and arrested, etc. And then, the corruption is just was totally exposed, and people are just like, I don't want that as presidency. And it's been great seeing a new president come in and just be just complete opposite of that. And so then, the people now, when they see Trump stuff, it's like hard to imagine it's also happening in USA. That's why they respond the way they do. Here's another person says, no, the president's spokesperson is a mess, right? And then this is actually an interesting one that they refer to. A Korean politician recently said something and this is a quote. It says, Yu Shimin's words are spot on. Quote, when a C-level person gains power, they're surrounded by C-level or D-level people. They never hire A-level people. They think that's how they can match their level or stand out, right? So the idea that is someone like a Trump who's completely incompetent, he either hires the same level as himself or people lower. And that's sort of why you see Trump people are just basically awful. That's a really good quote, right? When a C-level person gains power, they're surrounded by C-level or D-level, and they never hire A-level people. Here's another person. It's a female Trump. Wow, your mom. Talking about Karen Leavitt, and you got the symbols at the end are like a laughing symbol. Ha ha ha. The far right around the world is racist. That's science. Ha ha ha. Another person writes, wow, American people must be really embarrassed, LOL. And you would think so, right? I mean, I am, and I think most sane people are, but yes, there is still a portion of the population that's like still that MAGA. I honestly think though that they can't sustain this for much longer, because every time I tune into what the Trump people are doing, it's more crazy than like last time I checked. Like when does it come to the point where you're like, you get to be so far on the needle of craziness? Like, it's like you can't get any more crazy. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, it just keeps getting more and more nuts. But I mean, there's got to be a point of you can't do anymore. And there's going to be, more people are like, man, we can't go that far. But we'll see. We're still watching. It's like this insane drama. Another person writes, if you don't find Trump strange after seeing this, you're a far right person. Okay, fair enough. Another one. The United States is a truly strange country. They preach freedom of speech to such scum, yet deploy the military to suppress citizens who oppose it. The far right in South Korea, who claim this country as a protector of a liberal democracy, are even stranger. So they're comparing, again, the MAGA in USA to the MAGA type people in Korea. Another person writes, it would be interesting to see how much that female spokesperson, so that's referring to Karen Leavitt, wealth has increased. Wow. So saying like, hey, are you getting bribed or something like that? What are the reporters doing? Check her assets. She must have made a lot of money from stocks. Her family must have. It's an interesting question. A country going crazy. Another person writes, the fact that such a response, meaning the whole your mom thing, came out of an official press conference makes no sense unless they're trying to establish a dictatorship. And another person writes, giving absurd remarks instead of giving a reasonable answer to a question is admitting that the government has failed. Interesting way to read that. And here's another one. And this might be different than what people are saying. You'll say, I don't know. I'll ask you guys. The most surprising thing is that her face is 28 years old, 27 years old, lala LOL. I thought you were 47, meaning that, she's aging. And I'd be curious on your guys' thoughts on that. I personally think everyone in the Trump administration is aging, not just her. And this is just for anyone that when you have a high-stress job, it ages you quickly. Another person writes, a C-level president with D-level aides. And another person, wow, the level of the U.S. White House is truly miserable. So that's what people are saying in Korea. That's sort of what our news is. It basically just tells you who the Trump people are, and people share their thoughts. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you all in the next video.